How do you think Mad Maggie is going to affect Apex? She's literally going to be broken on day one. Listen, I can go into explanation. You know what? Let's make that a YouTube video. you know what? Let's make a YouTube video right the now. I'm going to tell you guys, welcome. My name's No Cocoa Puffs. I'm going to tell you guys why Mad Maggie is going to be broken in competitive. You guys ready for this? So if we look back at Seer, right? Seer did a total of 10 damage, but he had like a long range on his Q. And everyone would think, oh, 10 damage. On paper, that doesn't sound astronomical, right? It sounds like whatever. But then when you play the game, and everybody was starting to play the game, like I remember play testing it early, and I was like, I didn't think anything of it. I don't even remember if it did damage. But anyway, besides the point. The Q was doing 10 damage. And it was a really long range, and we were seeing people die left and right. That 10 damage was honestly like insane. But then when you play in a competitive standpoint, I'm talking about professional play and high-end ranked, more so competitive. There's like 16 squads alive or 17 squads alive, you know, by zone 5, zone 6, or not zone 6, zone 5, right? You have all these squads alive in a very tiny zone, enough to where like if you're playing in survey camp where a lot of the teams are occupying the buildings. Let's say there's 5 or 6 Seers alive because that legend is meta. That legend was shooting 10 damage, and other teams would notice that a team was getting shot by 10 damage and just zero boom, just hitting one building, right? And you're depleting the meds of a team that can't do anything about it. Now, you could essentially play Loba to counter, but then that's not really meta, right? Like, you would have to play Loba to then get endgame, and then at that point, you're not even really going to make endgame, you know, depending on like the damaging meta. Like at that point, you would much rather have like a Seer, a Valk, a Gibraltar, things like that, whatever, man. Maggie, the reason why she's going to be meta is simply for her Q. Her Q is this 150 meter range shot. After it's done, it's on a 14-second cooldown or 15-second cooldown. And then with a gold helmet, I think it's like 8 seconds or 7 seconds. All this damage for free that you can dish out. We think about Fuse, and the reason why like people weren't using Fuse so much is because his Q, don't get me wrong, his Q is just as good. It's just as like, it's super strong. It does damage. I think Fuse is the same level as Maggie in terms of like, it's too strong. Now, the difference is Maggie also has this movement ability. She also is really good with shotguns, with like the speed buff and things like that. She's like a better version. When it goes through walls is the problem. And the range, or it's also like the width of it, is if you're standing on the side of it, if you're 3 meters away, it hits you, right? Where it's like, that's like, bro, right? The ultimate doesn't affect team members. So like if it explodes, it doesn't hurt team members, kind of like Fuse, right? So that's like Fuse isn't necessarily meta. If you pop the Q and then your teammates go through the Q, they're slowed. They didn't take the damage, but they're slowed. It's kind of stupid, right? So like if you have Maggie's Q and it hits somebody, when it ult hits, it stuns them like a Bangalore, right? So if it stuns them like a Bangalore, you're basically dazed, and then you just push into that building and you shoot a Q. It's got visual clutter. It's got audio clutter. Its range is pretty far. I think it's like a 10-meter range. I shot it through a rock in the firing range, and it went like 10 meters or something like that. And it's also 3 meters wide. So you can get shot 3 meters wide, and then you can shoot it through 10 meters through a wall, and that laser's going right through. So like a Gibraltar bubble, for instance, it's going right to the middle of the Gibraltar bubble. That's insane. And it does 140 to 160 damage. The numbers don't seem to be consistent in the beta test that we've done so far. The problem is, again, with competitive, is Maggie is you shoot that ability, and it's gonna be like on this consistent cooldown from 6 or 7 teams in the end game. Imagine getting shot by a Maggie Q by 6 teams. Like, competitively speaking, that's insane. And there's nothing you can do about it, right? Like, you can't dodge it. You can't put up a wall to block it because its sole design was to block or is to go through things. But not only that, it breaks doors as well. So, like, you can't even hide behind doors. Like, you could be between a simple building. So, if you play Bloodhound, Gibraltar, Maggie, hypothetical comp, you're probably not going to run that comp, but it might be a potential. Aprezi's looking for me. I'm down. Hypothetical, right? You shoot that through a wall, through a building, through anything. You're getting hit by it. Throw in 6, 7 teams that are all throwing a Maggie Q, and you could be 150 meters away. You don't even need to be in the proximity of the person. I think a nice nerf would be obviously nerf the damage. And I think it needs to be like a breaching Q. So you have to be within like 10, 25 meters to use the Q. So if you're going to see somebody behind a building, you're going to shoot it like in front of you. It shouldn't be this like far range Q you can throw across map. Like, it's for how much damage and for how impactful it is. I don't think that like it's huge. So I think overall that's why Maggie is going to be meta in competitive, is simply because of the damage. So a lot of people I saw in some comments, they were saying that her ultimate, they were like, it's not impactful when having a gold helmet. It's not impactful for the speed buff to last till 91% of the ult. That's actually kind of false, right? Because what you could do is you can throw out the ult and it sets the charges ahead of time, right? So then if you're on rotate, you're like, okay, yo, like we're throwing it at 85 or like at 80%. We're going to run through our Q. We're going to run through our ult. We're going to speed buff, speed buff, speed buff, speed buff. By the time you get to the end of the speed buff and you're still in rotation, you're going to throw out another ultimate ability, right? And then have more of the jumps. You're going to have more of the speed buffs, right? So you can actually chain the speed buffs if done correctly by knowing the percentages. And because it lasts till almost the next ult, you can actually chain it and use that as a rotationary ability to go super fast. I think that a lot of people, when you break down those abilities and you think about it at a competitive mindset at a very high level, I know a lot of people are thinking in pubs and a lot of people are thinking like bronze, silver, gold, maybe even platinum rank, where like a lot of this stuff isn't going to be utilized. But the fact that it's there and can be utilized by top tier players and be learned by players who are in platinum and in diamond, that set them a difference from the other players, it's a distinct advantage when using abilities correctly or using abilities above the threshold of what you're thinking, right? Like instead of like taking a Mad Maggie Q and just shooting it in front of doors, right? Thinking about like shooting it and griefing a team from 100 meters away, you wouldn't think that at lower tiers, but in higher tiers, you're going to see it consistently being shot from giant ranges, and you're gonna see it. Everyone's gonna be like, bro, Maggie's Q is insane. There's nothing you can do about it. So yeah, when Seer's Q came out, we obviously know it was just so strong. That 10 damage, this does 140 to 160. You know, even so on a flip side too, if you toss the Q out, right? Let's say you're tossing a Q and then you're fighting. If that person strafes away from it, right, and you push that building. So let's say you toss your Q, you push the building. A lot of times too, it lasts as long as a thermite, by the way, as well. So when you push the building and you shoot somebody, no matter what, you're going to be strafing. Even if you accidentally strafe back into it, you're taking 8 damage. I think it's 8 and 4, 8 and 4, or it's like 8, 4, 8, 4, 8, 4, 8, 4, something like that. That damage it's hitting for is damage you don't have to do to shoot your gun. To put it in perspective, I believe with the patch coming out, I think an alternator does 16 to the body and 24 headshots. So if he steps into it, or, you know, the character you're fighting it steps into it twice, that's 2 bullets you don't have to hit. That's massive. When they made Crypto, this Crypto change, if we see in the clip, you see Crypto throw his Q and then ult, but still be able to shoot. That instantly, that small change is actually a big change and really makes him meta. I know he's already meta in the EU, but it really might be a pickup for NA now because it's this free 50 damage that doesn't take you out of your character and make you immobile, right? And it's also it also has this range to it that you can just send it. It's going to be like allowing you to still use your character while still dishing out 50 damage times 3 or times 6 or times 9 in the end game is wow. You know what I mean? That's massive. And you can scan beacons for up to 200 meters for free. So it really makes Crypto stronger just by that change. You know, it's nothing they changed in a massive way, but in competitively speaking, it can be more massive than it is. Imagine him running with your team. Now he can be running with your team and throw his drone out, and he doesn't have to hide in a corner or slide hiding in a corner or slide and get shot 5 times while he's trying to EMP. He can literally throw his drone out, slide where he needs to slide so he doesn't get hit by his own Q or his own ult. Boom, ult, boom, done, right? These are all combinations used at a very high tier that, like, competitively speaking, are going to shake up the meta. Now, I know a lot of people in the comments are probably going to be like, oh, like, we need a meta change. I agree. I think we need a meta change. I think we need to do this stuff. But I also think that we need to stop giving damaging abilities to legends and stop giving these new legends like 10 different things. For all my Bangalore people out there, right? Like Bangalore has a smoke, she moves fast, and her ultimate takes like 10 years to explode, right? Thinking about the end game, it's very easily avoidable when you hide in a building, right? Like it's not super crazy. Think about Pathfinder. Pathfinder doesn't have a passive. He's got a grappling hook. He has a zip line. It's very, very, very simple. Watson's great. I think Watson's like a really good example of a good legend, right? Like she has an ultimate ability she could place, does shields. After the shields run out, it can still block nades. She has fences. The fences are punishing, but have this counter ability to them. We now look at Valkyrie, for instance, and it's literally a Bloodhound scan from the sky. Her character can fly. Her Qs do 25 to like 40 damage. They also stun like an arc star. She can scan beacons, and she has a balloon for an ult. And it's like, when you really think about all that on paper, it's like, okay, wow, that's a lot. Now we look at Mad Maggie. Mad Maggie shoots you. She has like, wall hacks. If she shoots you, she moves faster with shotguns. Her ultimate does it. Her ultimate is essentially a Bangalore stun, right? If it hits you, it's Octane's stim, so you can move faster. And then her Q is this insane damaging ability. And it's like, bro, hello? Like, what the hell? Like, what is this? If we're going to keep the legends how they are, right? Maybe add more shield count so that way people can heal against these damaging abilities for people in pubs, for people in ranked. Like, if that's just not, if you're consistently getting poked by abilities and not necessarily, let's say you're positioning well, but you're still getting poked by abilities, that could be very annoying if you run out of meds. It's like, let me have the meds deal with it, right? So increase shield cell count from 4 to 6, batteries from 2 to 3, I think would be like a decent start. And then going forward, any of the legends that they release, kind of bring it back to that movement, mechanical skill. It's moving it back to what the core of Apex was, right? Because the core of Apex was mechanical skill, was movement, was just this raw 3v3 fighting, was this positioning of being like, it wasn't like a Bloodhound scan and I know exactly where to go. It was, I'm going to position myself here because I think they're going to be over here or over there, right? Like you're really making the mechanical aspect of the game more fun. And there was a dev, I don't know if there was an article on it, but there was something published where it was like, we don't want this to become ability legends. We want this to become very mechanical. We really want the mechanics of Apex to shine where it's very gun skill oriented. And they've moved very far away from that. I think Ash Q is like pretty balanced. My personal thing, because I think Ash Q, if she throws a Q, 10 damage, but she can't throw it across the map effectively. Like if you hit across map, it still does damage, but it moves so slow where it's like, I love the play and the counterplay as a player to be able to avoid it. That's just my take on why Mad Maggie is going to be meta, but also a little bit of like insight into a professional player's brain or into a pro's brain, right? Like, of how we think of how the damaging abilities are going to affect competitive. Like I'm not trying to think of like, oh, it's going to be fine. Like 150 meters, like it sounds pretty bad, but it's really, really, really bad. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on it. I mean, leave your comments down below in this YouTube video. Give me guys some of your insights of how you guys feel about it. I know some people are gonna be like, oh, you're overreacting. I mean, I gave you a lot of my points and my facts that are going to be in it and my experience with the game. So I would love to have an educated discussion. This is just my thoughts on it. I do think it's going to be huge. I do think this is going to be a massive change, but we'll see. Let me know.